laisse-moi te raconter l'histoire. J'avais mon combi matin, midi, soir. Frangine était dernier cri, son pied, mon pied, fallait nous voir. On a fait les 400 coups, on nous a bien vu partout, partout. Mais le pas là-bas, la main, non j'avoue, c'est que le frangin était touché à tout. Frangin, ça là, ça c'est quoi? Des livres bizarres, là c'est...
Welcome back to the Hip Hop African Podcast. Today we are talking with Gabonese hip hop artist Lord Ekomendon. He's been a leading voice in the African hip hop scene really since early 90s when he founded the Gabonese group Mauvais Zaleng. And they released their debut album in 1999 called Mission and Bang. He has done since then collaborations with lots of artists, especially from other Francophone countries. In 2003, he released his first solo album, L'Africain. Considered by many, and I was looking this up and doing research, a lot of people really consider that to be a classic hip hop album. Then around the time of the 2009 elections in Gabon, he released three singles, 300, 809, and Ngongul, which means what a shame. And the songs were critical of both corruption in Africa as well as France's controversial presence in Africa. In the song What a Shame, he talks about the high levels of corruption and underdevelopment in his country. And I was able to find translations of one of the verses in which he says, "We are a small country that cannot boast skyscrapers or atomic bombs, but we can boast of having invented a vaccine against shame. We have forests stretching over 200,000 miles, but we are unable to produce even a matchstick. All we have is a French flag, a French military base, talking, thinking, and eating French. 30 years of generating billions of francs in oil revenue, but the country is in the same state of underdevelopment." So I think very powerful language. It doesn't end there. In 2011, your 11th studio album, Ibo Gaim, he again took shots at France. In the song Black Question or Questions Noir, he talked directly to the French President Nicolas Sarkozy about France's military presence in Africa. Then in 2017, he released the album, the English translation is A Theory of Chords, where he reflects on the global protests that took place in the Gabonese diaspora around the 2016 elections. In the song Sur mon drapeau, which is By My Flag. So you really, since the beginning, have been very, very political, very active. And I think in talking about just the topic of France's presence in Africa, I think has been really controversial. And I don't think many artists have really spoken directly to France and criticized France's presence. A lot of folks have criticized, their governments. I think you've done both. You've criticized both France as well as the Gabonese government. So can you talk a little bit about kind of I want to talk about your background in terms of music, but I think first looking at what made you direct the lyrics to France. What about France's presence in Africa was a problem?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
So what was it about France's presence in Africa that inspired you to write those songs about their presence in Africa?
The French presence in Africa is a big problem for us, and I shouldn't have to explain it or to demonstrate it. First of all, excuse me for my English. That's not my natural tone. I don't have to speak it in my day to day, so it's really difficult for me. But I'm gonna try. It's like asking to an American citizen, what if, and I don't know, what if we had like some Russian military presence directly on American soil. We are used to French soldiers in our country. We in Gabon and everywhere in Africa, we have big military base. How do we call it? Base militaire. I mean, military presence in our country. We speak French. We think in French. We watch French television programs. We have French education. I mean, in schools, what we are taught comes from French program. So the problem is, I wonder if we can really consider our countries like souverain. I don't know how to say it in English. Souverain, which means we can decide what we want for us. We can do what we decide to do for us. And this is one of the reasons I had to write about it. And I think in all of our songs, we have always a little punchline about this problem. And as a Gabonese citizen, I talk about French presence in Africa, but I could say the same thing for a lot of other European countries.
No, I think that for those of us who understand the problem with France being in Africa, it was good to hear someone speaking out, because I feel like it's not done enough, especially with France. I think a lot of people, on the Anglophone side, people have talked about the U.S. AFRICOM, the bases that the U.S. was trying to put in various African countries. But I think less is known about France. I think a lot of people, especially people who are not coming from Francophone countries, don't really understand and know the problems that France is creating in Africa. So, that was important.
What you're saying, because a lot of problem we have comes from the hidden hand of French, not French people, but I mean French system, French history, French government. Excuse me, because my English is not as accurate as I want it to be, but the French presence, the French system is one of the biggest problems in Africa. We come from, in the song Ngongol, which means, like you said, like what a shame. I say that the song can be résumé, I can say it in 4 words, which is pays riche, peuple pauvre. In English, is like the richest countries, one of the richest country in the world, with one of the poorest people, which doesn't make sense. Gabon is one of the richest country in the world. We don't have that much population, like 1 million, but people are getting poorer and poorer. And all the richesse, I think in English we say wealth, maybe, goes to countries like France. We have oil, we have wood, of bois, we have manganese, we have everything. And Gabonese people we don't see the benefits. We don't enjoy this wealth. Yeah, and I'm talking about Gabon, but actually I'm talking about Africa. It's the same reality for all the Black continents.
And it's interesting because I think in the U.S., specifically in the U.S., there has always really been the belief that the French are not racist. So I think African Americans, I know, listen, no, let me just, because when you look at African Americans who've gone to France, they always there's this thing of, the French, they don't see colors, I was treated better in France than anywhere. But they're not able to attach that privilege to that U.S. passport. That if they didn't have a U.S. passport, that if they had a Senegalese passport, their experiences would be very, very different. That the Algerians have had a very different experience. So I think you're talking about what some of the things that the French are doing in Africa is important for those who are in the diaspora who don't believe, they haven't had that experience with France. They haven't seen that side.
The real problem right now is that I don't speak fluent English. If I could do it in French, come on. I mean, we have genocides. Does it exist in English?
Yes.
Some of them, most of them have been scheduled, organized by those kind of countries. In Cameroon, in Rwanda, in Nigeria, those kind of countries, and especially France, are involved in those kind of stories. We've been for like 500 years, not for 500 years, spoiled. Does it exist? Robbed, raped. And I'm not talking with hate. That's the strict reality by those countries. And it wasn't even some. I mean, it was a system. It was normal for them to organize this kind of exactions. So it's a big problem. The type of government we have in Africa, and we can talk about corruption and stuff like that, but all the dictators we have in Africa, in French, Francophone, French Africa, are kind of elected by a French system, not by. I don't know. I can talk about an African government that is put in place by the people in French Africa. I can see none. We have countries like Gabon where we had the same president for 42 years. It's a global record. Can we say it? Record.
Yeah, global record. Yeah,
a world record. And still today, it's the same family. We had the father, then we had the son, and now we have the grandson. Can you realize it in the same in the same country? And those kind of stuffs happens all over the continent. And we cannot say that it's some people are going to say, yeah, but African people, you like to play the victims and say always, oh, it's the other. But if we take a deep look at the history, you're going to see that I'm talking about things that we were not used to. When we talk about dictators, we don't know. Traditionally, we don't know any dictator. When we talk about all the wars going on Africa, we were not used to those kind of trouble by the past. They have been organized and introduced by the colonial ideas and the colonial presence in Africa in order to rob our wealth, in order to build their own countries.
Yeah. All right. So I want to come back to that. I really wanted to get up just because I was so I enjoyed the music and just the message. Once I was able to get some of the translations, I was able to appreciate it even more, because I think with hip hop, a lot goes beyond language. So a lot is in the energy, the beat, the flow, all of that stuff. You can kind of get that. So can you talk a little bit about the history of hip hop in Gabon?
The history of hip hop in Gabon in the early 80s. we had some hip hop contests. But when I say hip hop, I'm talking about breakdance and Smurf. Do you say Smurf in English? Smurf? No. Okay, breakdance. Let's say breakdance. It's a part of the hip hop dances. As far as I'm concerned, my big brothers were dancing in some groups, some crews, in the early 80s. And for the music, the rap music, we've been touched, like, hip hop is contagious. So in the early 90s, we can see, we had to see the first little crews. Mine is one of them, but I'm 40 right now, so we were the youngest in the game. This is why we are still I'm old in the game, but I'm kind of young, So it started by the dancing movement. Then we had the privilege to have a radio station called Africa #1, Africa numéro 1, who was broadcasted all over the world and all over Africa. And rap groups from all over the continent used to send their demos to that radio. So it was one of the first, we had the first shows for African hip hop. And in Gabon, in the main town, which is Libreville, some hip hop groups had the occasion to go and to freestyle on that radio. We used to call that movement the Rappeurs de la Côte Ouest Africaine, which means West Side, Africa's West Side rappers, which was a big movement. We already had like 30 crews that could be heard every week on radio, and it was on the early 90s, so like 1991, 1992. For crews like mine, we were writing lyrics on our bedrooms, on our schools, our college, lycée, I don't know how to say it in English, high school, maybe. And little by little, things got bigger and bigger. So from the streets to the radios to the television, and we had the occasion to go all over the country, to go all over Africa, to go outside of Africa, America, Europe, and Asia. Yeah, and this is I think it's been like that for all the big groups of my country.
Okay. And so then, you say in terms of the history of it, so it wasn't just rap and DJing. So you also had the breakdancing scene.
Of course.
So what about graffiti? Has graffiti been big in?
Graffiti too. By the time it was about breakdancing, they had graffiti too. But the way I can talk about it is different because I was really young. I was like 7 or 8 years old. I'm not sure that I can talk about it as a movement. I'm talking about what I saw my big brothers and their friends do. So yes, they were. It was about graffiti, dance, Smurf, and breakdance, but I cannot measure how it was spread all over the city. I don't know.
Okay. And who were some of the early artists? Because it had to kind of come in from somewhere. So who were some of the early, I would say, the American artists that were big in Gabon that you feel may have had an influence?
Oh, the American artist, Public Enemy. I'm legitime. How can I say it? We are Public Enemy descents. Public Enemy, yo, bum rush the show. Here it is, bam, and you say, God damn, this is the dope jam. I don't remember the title of the song. Public Enemy, NWA. Because I grew up with my big brothers were really a huge fan of hip hop, so I was in it when I was like 10 or 11 years old, and the music I had to write was really influenced by those artists because I was too young to do something really different. But as I grew up, I had to reappropriate it to make my own inspiration, my own mindset, my own reality in my music. Even if in the beginning I was doing what I used to hear from Chuck D and Flavor Flav, from X-Lan, from Brand Nubian, from those groups. But even if I was a kid, it was only about conscious Black music for me. Of course, when I talk about NWA, it's because it was a question of Black music, Black reality, Black fight, Black power, and that's what I had to do with my music.
Okay. Now, I remember you guys used to have a hip hop festival. Is that
in Gabon?
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of things I've been tried. We had Gabao Hip Hop.
Yes, that's
which
what
was the biggest one, and which was organized. Do you know what I mean? Organized.
Yes.
Managed by my former manager. We even had beef because this event was initially one of Mauvais Halene's event. But we had a split with the manager. Finally took some of the contacts and the idea to develop what became the Gabao Hip Hop. At the end of the day, the event was a good thing, so we don't care today.
Okay. But you guys had some pretty big artists. You guys had a lot of international artists that came for that, right? Is that?
Yeah, but not only for the Gabao hip hop. We had La Nuit de la Musique, so the night of the music. We had Jay-Z and Beyonce and Rihanna and Fat Joe and I don't know, Tyrese, Fat Joe. For this event, we had like almost 10 American big names. And like 20 French big names and 30 big names of the country. So but it was, of course, it was an event from the person of the government, the family which is in place, pouvoir en place, the power that be. I don't know how to say it in English.
Was it the president's son or somebody rap or?
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff. The president's son kind of rap. His mother, she raps too. So yeah, way before him.
Wow.
So the first lady of Gabon. She sings. She's a great African singer, and She raps sometimes.
Okay. So then, how political is Gabonese hip hop in general? So I know in terms of the artists that you've worked with and everything, but how would you describe Gabonese hip hop? Is it
there is two dimensions when we talk about political hip hop and politics in Gabon. The first one is MCs like me talking about what's going on in the country. Everybody has his own words, his own mindset, his own way to describe the situation, and even his own statement and opinion. So there is not that much, there is not so much groups who talk about the reality. No, there's a lot of groups talking about the reality, but there's not many that can be heard like mine, because we one of the biggest group, and from the beginning, the name of the group is Mauvaise Haleine. Mauvaise Haleine means bad breath. So everybody knows us for that. But you have a lot of other group, a lot of other artists trying to say something, but they don't have the same audience. Plus, it's not easy in our kind of country to talk about these stuffs, because we have a long tradition of shutting people up. Maybe person who had to disappear, to be killed, and stuff like that. So if you just a little MC trying to say, yo, that's the reality, it wasn't really reasonable. The second dimension is not about the lyrics or the mindset of the artist. It's the point is everything in the country is touched by politics. If you want to write a book, it seems like you have to deal with those people. If you want to start, how can I say it, une entreprise, une société, how can I say it, a business, you have to deal with those people. Everything you want to do, you have to deal with them. If you want to make music, the radios, the TVs, the televisions, everything belongs to the same person. So you can go nowhere without those person, and you have to pay allegiance to the same person in order to do anything you want to do in the country. Things are changing a little by little, because with the times, generation after generation, the mindsets are evolving. Nowadays, the little groups, they are speaking the truth. They don't even have to be that conscious, but they are not afraid like we used to be. So little by little, the hip hop is getting more and more free to say what he has to say, which was not the case which was not the case for us by the time.
Then how did the government react to your music?
Yeah, I cannot say too much things about it, because it's not, it's délicat, it's complicated, but I'm right about now, I'm living in France, which is not my country, which is not the country I love the most. I have members of my family that can not go back to Gabon because of our statement. So there is nothing official. I cannot say that I'm persona. Do you know persona non grata?
Yes.
When the country says, okay, you don't have the right to come back, or when you are some kind of, not refugee, exile.
Yeah.
Everybody knows me because of one of my songs that talks about exile. But I can't say that I'm some kind of political refugee because I don't have the statue. But the reality is that last time I went to Gabon, some stuff were not that easy for us and for me and for my group. So we decided to be more careful. And this is why, for the first time in my life, I spent like 5 years without going back to my country. I used to go to Gabon like 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year, but now for 5 years I haven't been back there.
Wow. Now I know that in looking at hip hop across the continent, it seems that Francophone artists are especially political. So when you look at your music, artists from Senegal, Burkina Faso, it seems that there's a lot more political content. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, but do you communicate a lot with some of those other artists that are from the Francophone countries?
There are different generations. I can say we have, like, I'm going to say 3 generations. The first one is a generation that disappeared because they were not that numerous, and so they didn't have the time to be as notorious as they should deserve. Then there's the second generation, which is my generation. Those who were kids in the early 80s. But you have a new generation with a different mindset about those things. The concept we had in our hip hop was like trying to be righteous, try to be positive, music with Pan-African message, talk about freedom, peace, and stuff like that. Today, the concept is a little bit different, and not only in Africa, all over the world. People, all those artists are businessmen. They try to make money. They try to struggle with their music. So the concept is a little bit different. For the second, this is the third generation I was talking about. So when it comes to conscious music, we have to talk about the second generation, because like me with Public Enemy, it was natural for us to think that rap music has to talk about the struggle of our people, the problems of the country. So that's what we did. In Burkina Faso, you have a brother like Smokey, who played a big role in the transition, the democratic transition in his country. In Senegal, you have brothers like Daraji, like Awadi, and those groups have a huge influence in the country. So for my generation, the second one, there is a political, not political, I want to say conscious message in the music. Today, you have MCs. It's another concept, another generation. They can talk about other stuffs.
Okay. All right. So in terms of looking at the projects you're working on now, so you told me you just released 2 albums back to back?
Yeah, I just released two like surprise, 2 albums. You know, I like to think about, English is difficult. Strategy, you know, the way you have to set everything before you do them, you do it. The guy, me, I'm abroad. I'm outside of the country.
Yeah.
But my music is designed for my country and for Africa and for the Black world. And the first place where my music makes sense is my country. So how can I make my music in my country, knowing that the radios, the TVs, and even the plane is closed for me? I had to think about a way to be there with a big impact without being there physically. So we set an event which is called Catalog Challenge, like Versus they do in the US now. You know, you take two big artists with their catalog, and you one face they how can I say they fight against each other with their music. So that's what we set with another big artist from Gabon, which is a good friend of mine. His name is Baponga. And so it was a big, a really big event in Gabon to have this guy in front of me. And at the end of this event, I said like, okay, guys, everything's good, but surprise, I have 2 new albums for you. So it was a way to say to all the country, come on, be online, look what we are doing. And now that you are online, I have to announce that I have 2 new albums. And I set a way to distribute them specifically for the country, because, you know, credit cards in Africa, it's fucked up. All the moyen de paiement, the way to pay for everything that is not physical it's really difficult. So I had to find a way to fix it. Then I launched. I used a little startup which is called G-Store Music to distribute my album. From the moment I said, okay, go get my 2 new albums, with a way to get it specifically for Gabon. So it's a huge success. The numbers I'm making for that is haven't been done before. So I'm there without being there.
Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna definitely have links to your sites and stuff on social media so people can get the projects, can go online and find the music and everything. So there was, there was something that, language. So what languages do you rap in?
Most of the time in French, because everybody speaks French in my country. I rap in my natural tongue, which is Fon. And in French, but you know, with the time we had to develop, the street developed a different way, a slang, a Gabonese, a French Gabonese slang. So I was one of the first to use it in my music. But you know, the third generation I was talking about, sometime they use that kind of French. Even me, I'm not sure I understand every word, because it evolves really fast, really quick. So it's French. French, the way we use it in Gabon, most of the time.
Okay. So then, kind of finishing up, what are some things that you're kind of doing, and some things like, you know, 'cause I know you're busy these days. So for people who, you know, may want to know what you have planned and kind of what's coming up for you. You're on mute. It's muted. Somehow it went. Okay.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay, I just dropped two new albums. That can be, you can get it, you can see it in all the classic classic platform. I mean iTunes, Tidal, Amazon, Deezer, Spotify, and Google Store. And I use a Gabonese platform that I use a Gabonese platform for my album, which is called G, like the letter G from Gabon, gstoremusic.com. My name is Ekomy, Ekomy. So the message is go get this album, and that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I definitely thank you for coming on, and I know we've been kind of running and trying to catch up, so I'm glad we were able to connect.
Okay, thank you.
Move,